1 Corinthians chapter 10, 3 and 4. All drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Paul reminds us that the Israelites in the wilderness all drank the same spiritual drink, and the rock was Christ. This verse shows us that just as God provided for his people physically, he also offers a spiritual source of life through Jesus Christ. Yet, not everyone chooses to accept this gift. Some turn away, relying on themselves, their positions, or worldly pleasures. Understanding why some refuse this spiritual drink and the consequences of that choice can help us appreciate the importance of drawing from Christ daily. Explanations. Paul is reminding the Corinthians of the experience of the Israelites in the wilderness. Even though they faced many challenges, God provided for them. The spiritual rock refers to Christ as the source of spiritual life and sustenance, just as the Israelites drank water from the rock in the desert. Believers receive spiritual nourishment from Christ. Application. It encourages reliance on Jesus for guidance, sustenance, and spiritual strength, rather than depending solely on worldly solutions. What happens to those who refuse the spiritual drink from Christ? Let's break it down carefully. Spiritual implications. The spiritual drink represents life, guidance, and sustenance from Christ. Rejecting it means separating oneself from God's source of life. In the Bible, spiritual separation leads to spiritual dryness, emptiness, and vulnerability to sin. The biblical warnings. In John 4:14, Jesus says, "Whoever drinks of the water I give him will never be thirsty again. Those who refuse it remain thirsty." In Matthew 25, verse 41 to 46, those who reject God's ways face eternal separation from Him, often referred to as judgment or hell. The practical perspective. Spiritually refusing Christ doesn't just affect eternity, it can also affect life now. Lack of peace, guidance, and joy. Prone to moral or emotional struggles. Living without the purpose and strength that come from God. Refusing the spiritual drink leaves a person without God's sustenance, both now and eternity. God wants all to come and drink freely, but He honors our choices. Why some people refuse the spiritual drink? Reasons people refuse the spiritual drink. Number 1. Pride of self-reliance. They believe they can handle life on their own and don't need God. 2. Disbelief or doubt. Some don't believe in God or doubt His existence or goodness. They think the spiritual path is unnecessary or unreliable. 3. Fear of change. Accepting Christ may require changing habits, thoughts, or lifestyles. Fear keeps them from stepping into God's way. 4. Worldly distractions. Materialism, pleasures, business, or pride can distract from spiritual truth. They may drink from temporary pleasures instead of eternal source. 5. Hurt or past experiences. Some may have been hurt by religion or people and associate God with pain. Trust becomes difficult, so they resist spiritual life. How to help someone accept a spiritual drink? 1. Shows God's love through actions. Acts of kindness, patience, and integrity often speak louder than words. 2. Shares personal experience. Testimony of how Christ satisfies and strengthens can be powerful. 3. Teach gently and respectfully. Avoid forcing beliefs. Invite, explain, and clarify doubts. 4. Pray for them. Prayer can soften hearts in ways words cannot. 5. Point to the benefits. Spiritual peace, guidance, hope, joy, and strength are tangible outcomes. People refuse a spiritual drink for many reasons: pride, doubt, fear, or distractions. But through love, patience, clear teachings, and prayer, they can be encouraged to accept Christ and experience the life-giving spiritual nourishment He offers. Life is full of thirst for peace, purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Yet, many search in the wrong places, hoping to satisfy their deepest needs with money, success, or approval from others. In 1 Corinthians 10:3, Paul reminds us of the Israelites in the wilderness, who despite their challenges were given a spiritual drink that came from the rock, and that rock was Christ. This spiritual drink represents God's provision, guidance, and life for every believer. However, not everyone chooses to receive it. Some turn away out of pride, doubts, fear, or distractions. Refusing these gifts leaves one spiritually empty, vulnerable, and far from the abundant life God's offer. Understanding the significance of the spiritual drink and learning to accept it can transform our daily walk, bring true satisfactions, and guide us through life's wilderness with hope and strength. Life's thirst cannot be satisfied by money, success, or pleasures. And 1 Corinthians 10 verse 3 shows us the true source of life, Christ, the rock. So here's an urgent call. Will you drink from Him today and experience the spiritual life He freely offers? Make a choice now.